I have Star Wars The Last Jedi, and this is the film I was looking the most forward to this year, and so therefore I was also the most apprehensive about it because it's Star Wars, and I'm super heavily invested in it. And I am going to make a bold assertion here. I think personally, for me, it is my favorite of everything outside the original trilogy. Like, It is my favorite of all the new ones, including Rogue One. We don't talk about the prequels. But I loved The Last Jedi so much. And a lot of it has to do with, like, personal reasons for it. I've always loved Star Wars, and there was a lot of stuff in this one that I was just like, this feels like a Star Wars film for me. So I give it that. And it's not a perfect movie in any sense, but it is beautiful. It has comedy, it has action, it has suspense, it has great characters. And I felt like Episode 7, The Force Awakens, it was great, right? I think I was the most apprehensive about that one because we'd just come off the prequels and we didn't know what was going to happen, and it had such high expectations, and I was so nervous about it. And then it ended up being great, but also not the most original thing ever because they basically just followed the template of A New Hope, which is fine and did service to the fans and was really enjoyable, but it wasn't the most original thing out there. So when I saw The Last Jedi, I was so ridiculously surprised because I see so many movies. I see a ridiculous amount of movies, and I've seen Star Wars more times than I should ever admit to. So it is very hard to surprise me in films. And I'm not going to spoil anything because I want people to see this. And I would hate someone if someone spoiled this for me. But there are definitely moments where I was like, I don't know where they're going with this. And I was so happy about that. Because to have a franchise that's so big and so many people are invested in it, and to take risks and to kind of keep people on their toes and to have that sense of suspense is so refreshing in a Star Wars movie. So I was so happy about it. But this is why I really loved it. So for me, there was always Princess Leia, and growing up, like, I wasn't super into Princess Leia because she was a princess and really like kind of a girly girl. I mean, she wasn't a super girly girl, but she was still a princess, and I was like, no, I want to be Han Solo because he's a badass smuggler. So, I admired her, but I didn't really want to be her or anything growing up. And then The Force Awakens gave us Rey, who's this kick-ass character who, comes from nothing, seems to be strong with the Force. She isn't a princess, she isn't whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm all about her. She's amazing. So then we had General Leia, played by Carrie Fisher in The Last Jedi, I was like sobbing every time she came on screen because it's her last film. Yeah. And she was so amazing in it, and it was just so like wonderful to see her in this last role.
Are they showing her in this?
She is in this movie. She is absolutely in this movie. Yeah, she had finished filming by the time she passed. So in The Force Awakens, we had Daisy Ridley as Rey, we had General Leia with Carrie Fisher, and then we had Captain Phasma, who's Gwendoline Christie from Game of Thrones. And it was great, right? It was probably, and technically Maz Kanata, which was Lupita Nyong'o, but she was only in it for like a little bit, and she's this sort of CG character, so I don't know if you'd be like, I want to be Maz Kanata. But anyway, with The Last Jedi, not only do we have those characters, but we now have the addition of Laura Dern, who's an amazing actress, as Vice Admiral Holdo. And then we have Kelly Marie Tran, who I have so much admiration for. She's the first Asian woman main character in a Star Wars film. And for me, it was just so amazing to see that sort of representation on screen. And it's not about her being Asian, but she is Asian. I was just like, I was getting misty-eyed at the fact that there was such a variety of awesome women characters for kids to aspire to be or to be inspired by. And I was just like, man, I wish I'd kind of had that as a Star Wars when I was growing up, but I'm so happy as an adult to see it now. So for me, that's why I think The Last Jedi will probably be my favorite of all of them for that reason. Also, again, really beautiful film, really cool fights, all the things you want in a Star Wars movie, except for these things called porgs, which parents watch out. Like, they're these weird flappy bird things. Like, you've probably seen them in the trailers. And I'm like, every household is going to be filled with porgs. Every household with kids is going to be filled with porgs, and you're going to hate them by the end because they're just like a money-making scheme. And I was like, whatever. The cast is back. I just loved it so much. Like, I'm at a loss for words because I loved it so much, and I don't want to spoil it because I loved it, and I think everyone will love it. Also, it really wouldn't matter what I said. You're going to go see this movie anyway. Let's be honest. So, I think it's worth it. Take your daughters. Please take your daughters. Take your sons, too. Take your whole family. Take your friends. See it a bunch of times because I think it's worth it. I can't wait to see where episode 9 goes. Like, I was literally left there. I was like, oh, it's going to be 2 years until the next one. I can't do this. but yeah, and credit to Rian Johnson, the director, because clearly Lucasfilm had so much trust in him that they were like, yeah, you can do a whole Star Wars series not about the Skywalkers. And I was like, that's a lot of trust. And clearly they'd seen The Last Jedi cut because now I was like, I can't wait to see what he does. So I was so excited by this film. I can't wait for people to see it. It's not perfect, but it's beautiful. It's fun. It's humorous. I can't think of a reason not to like it, so I'm giving it 5 out of 5.
Boom. There you go. 5 out of 5. And what's it called again?
Star Wars The Last Jedi.
There it is. And you said you have another one, right?
I do. So if you have younger kids, Star Wars might be a bit much for them. It gets pretty dark at times. So there is Ferdinand, and it's based on a children's book of the same name, and it's an animated film from the folks at Blue Sky Studios. And it's about a matador bull played by John Cena, who I love, but you don't see him, so it doesn't really matter. But I think he's doing a decent job as a voice actor. And he plays Ferdinand the bull, who doesn't want to fight. And so he runs away as a little kid and finds a nice family who farms flowers, and he lives with them, and he grows up, and it's very sweet. And then, of course, through a series of events, because it's a movie and it has to have events, or a plot, if you will, he ends up back at the bullfighting farm where he grew up, and he has to find his way back home. And there's a bunch of stuff involving bullfighting, which is such a dark sport. I was like, this is an interesting choice to have in a film. And then if there was ever an animated movie that was going to come close to making me consider giving up eating meat, it might have been Ferdinand, because there's some dark stuff about a chop shop. I was like, oh man, like we are going serious with this. Like, I feel like there was a very pacifist, vegetarian, vegan message to the whole film, which there's nothing wrong with. But I was like, wow, we're really going for that. Kate McKinnon is in it as a calming goat, which was very bizarre, but it's Kate McKinnon, and I love her, and she's amazing in everything she does. The rest of the voice cast is pretty famous as well. It's Peyton Manning, who maybe stick to football. I love him, but maybe stick to football. Bobby Cannavale, Anthony Anderson, David Tennant, Gina Rodriguez, David Diggs, Gabriel Iglesias. Juanes is in it, just because. And I think there were parts that are going to be a little grating to sit through if you are an adult. Some of the humor might be pandering a little towards the childish side, which obviously your kids are probably not going to see this without you, hopefully. So, you're going to have to sit through that. I'm sorry. And so I know I'm not the target audience necessarily for this type of film. So I try to take into account, like, hey, are the kids around me laughing? Like, are they enjoying it? They definitely enjoyed parts of it. I didn't hear as much laughter as I was expecting, but I think there were also a lot of jokes that went over their heads. There's this whole thing about, like, the bull in the china shop, and I was like, haha, I get it. Okay, I don't think kids know that adage anymore, so, oh well, it's hit and miss there. I do have to say, again, kind of like Star Wars, I hadn't read the book, so I didn't know where it was going. Like, I was like, where does this end? Do they fight at the end? Like, what's supposed to happen? So I was surprised by it. I wasn't, like, super surprised, but I was like, okay, there were moments where I was like, I don't know what's happening, and not in a bad way. So it's refreshing, because I feel like movies aimed at younger audiences especially can be very templated and, like, formulaic. And so having at least a few moments of, like, it could go multiple ways is always at least a little bit nicer as an audience goer. Overall, I think it's fine and it's cute. It has a lot of good messages for kids, honestly, probably. Again, the whole pacifism thing. It's very earth-friendly. It's anti-bullying. I'm sure they... Yeah, but I think it's 3.5 out of 5. It's good. It's not going to be the most amazing, even animated film you see this year, but I think it's sweet, and if you can't take your kids to go see Star Wars, this is an okay alternative.
There you go. Boom. Ferdinand, it's called, right?
Ferdinand.
There you go.